Everyone, and welcome to another live show coming directly from the studio. And without any further delay, let me tell you the topic of today's video. Well, I'm gonna be showing you how to use compressor and how they actually affect your audio, and more specifically, how you can determine your attack and release setting. How do you know what to set it to? I mean, apart from the fact that, of course, you can use your ears to judge how your music sounds, how the audio sounds, or the particular instrument, or the whole mix. But especially when you are trying to determine the compression ratio and the attack and release times, how do you know you got it right, in technical sense? So I hope this video, my live streaming and showing you how I sort of decide those settings in general terms, of course, and then use the ear to adjust the final levels. And I hope this video will help me out in that sense. I will try to get few questions, but this is more about me working on within my DAW and showing you how I actually do things. So there's going to be a few topics within it, and but the main topic I want to cover is how to find out your attack and release settings for your compressor, and then the ratio would be obviously something else that you can we can look at. And the DAW that I'm going to be using today is Cakewalk, of course, the free DAW. And I'm going to try to use as many of the plugins that are included within Cakewalk, so that should be fun. It should be fun. So stick around. This might be a little bit lengthy, but not too long. I will try to make it, around 30 minutes or so or less, going through different things, different topics, and covering the main topic as I mentioned. Okay, welcome everybody. If you have just joined me, it's really nice seeing everybody come back for a live demonstration of how to set compressors and a few other things in between. So, we're all ready to go? Let's set. You will hear me mumble and talk sometimes, but the majority of the time I'm going to try to explain my mind what I'm trying to do, each of the step that I'm taking, and hopefully this will help you out. So here we go. I've got Cakewalk open. Now the first thing I want to do, this is my demo project. The first thing I want to do is show you quickly how I'm going to convert a MIDI track. I'm just going to use my bass guitar, which is the Cakewalk bass guitar in there, and how to convert the bass MIDI into an audio. And then I'm going to show you the audio part. We're going to work on the audio part. To do that, in Cakewalk it's quite simple. It is much easier also in Studio One, which is my main DAW. In Studio One, you simply create an audio track and you drag the MIDI into an audio track, a blank audio track, and that will automatically convert it. But in Cakewalk, to do that, we're just gonna select it and go to tracks, select the track you want and the clip, and we're going to tracks and say bounce to tracks. Here we're going to create a new track. I've got 9 tracks to make sure it's under a new track, and I want the track to be the main source, which is SI Bass Guitar 1, which is my MIDI instrument track. And channel format mono is fine because it is bass. So track mute solo, I don't need that. I don't need the automation. I also don't need the effects. There's no buses on there. Anything else, it's all good. We can use a 64-bit engine if we like, and the fast bounce. So that's the sort of the setting that I'm going to choose to convert it. So I just click OK. And here we are, right at the bottom, a new track called SI bass guitar. I'm going to call this, just so that we don't get confused. It says bounced. I'll leave bounced. Just want to get rid of those. So we don't get confused with the MIDI one. Here is my bass track. So let me just unsolo that one and solo the audio. Actually, let's have a listen to the original one first. This is the MIDI one. Okay. Now let's have a listen to the. Yep. Let's have a listen to the audio recording of that. So it sounds exactly the same. So that's how you can actually convert your MIDI instrument into an audio track, and you can work it from there. I personally like to bounce them into audio. Then I can manipulate them the way I like it, and I can always mute the MIDI tracks, so that way I still have the MIDI if I need to change something for whatever reason, if the timing. But you would normally correct all of those before you bounce it, but just in case, you can always have them there, and you can hide the track as well in your track manager. And here we have our audio of the bass guitar. Let's just zoom in and have a look. Yep. Now here is a topic that I want to talk about, how to use Compressor, how to find out the settings that you want to set, especially the attack and the release, so that you are capturing the peaks. And when I say the peaks, we are looking at these peaks right here. These sort of peaks, these ones there. Okay? Because in reality, what's going to happen is these peaks will occupy all of this blank space, and the actual audio energy, which is these bottom parts, are far too low. They're about, I can just see about from minus 12 dB and below. So they are technically minus 12 dB, but because of the guitar plucks you've got there, even though it's a virtual instrument, but it's still very close to a live instrument anyway, these peaks will actually occupy the headroom. And the way you can make it loud, and this is part of getting your song loud, if you really want it loud, if you're part of the loudness war, or even to get, reduce the dynamic so an instrument stands out, what you need to do is chop off these peaks so that they're not too high, so they are averaged out. So where my cursor is, I hope you guys can see it on the live stream. So because they are occupying this space, they don't really need to. And we need to be gentle, obviously. We're not going to cut it completely. But imagine if this peak was down here, then you've got this all of the energy that you can amplify. And we will see later on how, when we normalize this, what happens and what the levels are. So here we've got minus 3.3 as a peak that has appeared there. Let me just clear that and play it again. Normally it's 6.5, 3.3. So as you can see, while it was playing, it was around minus 6.5, and as soon as it hit that peak, it went to minus 3.3. So that's about 3 dB difference that we can claim by reducing those peaks. So we can reduce those peaks by using compressor. But how do we know to compress and take care of these peaks without changing any of the other characteristics of the audio? Because you don't want to change the whole characteristic of the audio. And the way to find out is the attack. In simple terms, we need to see how quickly the wave is going from the zero to all the way to the peak. So how fast is this climb? Because that's our peak. If we zoom out again, just so you can actually see, that's our peak. We need to find out how quickly that's going up. And that's our attack setting. We want the compressor to react to this change in level. And in Cakewalk, again, it's easy. We can just go to plus here, right at the top corner. And I'm going to add millisecond ruler. And then I'm going to use the select option, go right to where the cross, that line is, and then click my mouse and drag all the way to the peak. And right at the top, I can see it's about 0.2 microseconds. That's what's happening there. It takes 0.2 microseconds. Now, of course, you're not going to rely on just one. I like to see that's a smaller one. Let's have a look at this one, how long it's taking for this one to come up. That's a better example, because we want it to start from here, because that's the first instance of it, to all the way there. And that's about 0.6 of a microsecond. And that is this, it's about here where my mouse is flickering, where the thing, you'll be able to see. I'm going to try it again, have a quick look there. You can see it's about 0.6 of a microsecond. So we need to find out a compressor that is fast enough to be able to do that. And in most cases, in this instance, I guess probably it's going to be very hard to find a compressor that can do that fast. Another way we can also see what the release is, and it's from the release is when the compressor releases from this point until here, because we don't want to touch this one. So for that one, let's have a look from the peak of that into there. It's about 34 microseconds. So really fast. So that's how quickly we need to release it, because if we keep the compressor still active, it will also start compressing the other parts that we don't really want. I hope that makes some sense of how we can find out the attack, which is this part here, about 6 microseconds, and then the release, which is pretty much, I guess, maybe even after there, because we want to take care of these two. To there, it's about 27 or 30 microseconds. Now, you might go, well, that's just one cycle. Of course it is. This is just giving you an idea of how to take care of these peaks. As you've seen earlier, this peak is a different time to this one. So you can go and have a look at the big main peaks of your audio, if you have any, and find out the average, and that's the setting that you need to put in your compressor. I hope that makes sense. Let's have a look if there are any questions. We have Manuel saying Avanti tuta. I'm not sure what it means. I don't speak the language, but here we go. We have Secret saying, sorry that I'm late. It's okay. No problem. Morning from Italy, Giuseppe. Buongiorno. Not have latency in this waveform. I'm not sure what it means. Anyway, very quickly, I'm just going to read through some of the comments. Because I'm new to this stuff, I barely even have any instruments since I don't have much money and research for what will help me. I need to know if physically modeled instruments react to effects plugins same as samples, since I'm looking to buy modeled libraries first. Well, technically modeled libraries are sampled. Some of them are multi-sampled. And you get what they call a way randomly it will choose from multiple different samples as you're playing, let's say, the same note. This will give you some randomness, and that's why they sound more realistic. And especially once they start adding articulations, then it becomes as close as to the real thing as you can. Of course, obviously, the real thing is completely different. Yeah, that's all I can say. Just moving on. But Giuseppe says, but depend to audio hardware for latency mode. I'm not quite in sync with you, Giuseppe. Anyway, in bounce mode, waveform is okay, but record audio external different. I got you what you mean. Of course, recording live from a microphone, it'll be different than the instrument. And it won't have any latency for sure, because it's just direct. It just plays the audio in fast mode in the background and records the audio as an audio track. Of course, it'll be very different. I hope that explains it. There is no latency issues there whatsoever, because it's all automatically internally calculated if there are any latencies. So yeah, anyway, let's move on and go back to the project, and we should be able to continue and get a compressor there and see what we can do with the compressor. Okay, back onto the project. Let's add an audio effect. Let's just add the Sonatus compressor, which is in Cakewalk, but you can use any compressor. So the first thing we need to do is the attack time. Now this one, it goes into milliseconds, obviously 0.8, 0.5, but 0.1. So it's not as sort of fast. So let's put on 0 and see what happens. I mean, we can always put on, let's say, half a millisecond. And the release time we were looking at 30, so we just go to about there. Let's see how that works. And then looking at the waveform, we want about minus 12 dB. The peaks, they are at 6, and we're minus 9. So we're just going to bring that as a starting point to a minus 9 dB. Ratio, I'm just going to put it an infinite, because I want to demonstrate to cut right of the top, and hard knee, so it's just flat square, and there's no need for makeup gain. And let's give it a try and to see how it sounds now. Okay, we're getting about 2 dB of gain reduction. Let's reduce this a little bit more, maybe about 9.9. So now we're actually capturing all of the peaks without affecting the rest of it. So if you think about how the waves passing through this area, and as the peaks pass above this threshold, they're going to be compressed. And we've got gain reduction of 5.1 at the highest peak. So how we actually demonstrate this, what it's actually doing? Well, it's quite easy. I'm going to select the clip, the audio clip, go to tracks, and again, bounce the track. This time I'm going to select the track effects, new track, mono, yep, everything should be all good. Let's cakewalk, back playing of this audio, applying our compressor, and then recording it onto a new track. And let's enlarge that. Now we can already see how the waveforms at the beginning, it looks pretty much the same, except this time we've got these peaks all sorted out. They're not sticking out because the compressor took care of them. Okay, but the rest of the audio, the rest of the body of the actual audio for that instrument is still intact. It's still the same, no different. Okay, so all these peaks we're pretty much taken care of, and that's what we are trying to do. And that shows you how knowing the correct attack setting and the release setting. Let's sort of zoom in here. So and especially the release setting, it does not affect the rest of the audio. We can still see they are pretty much the same level, and that is virtually the same, but except we chopped off these two and make it more of the same. Let's zoom even further. Yep, there we go. So all we did is reduce these two, which were sticking out. Now we have all of this headroom to play around with. I hope that helps you out. So you can understand and see how that actually worked. I measured the attack time and the release time, averaged it out, and now applied it, and the result of it I can see it's exactly what I expected. Of course, you can still use your ears, whether that was too much or too little, whether it did take a lot of the transients out and the plucking out. So let's have a listen to the original one, this track here. Actually, I'm going to reset. About minus 8.2 is the peak for that one. And let's have a listen the new one, which is compressed. Yep. Minus 8.2. Okay, the picks are the same. So what happened? Well, let's have a look at some of the comments, and I'll come back and explain why the new version is better than, well, it's going to be louder than the original one. Oh, where are we? Here we go. I'm back. It's a bit tricky to actually do this live stream and work out what's actually switching between all the different apps. Anyway, let's see. That helps. Thanks for explaining modeling sampling relationship from Secret. You are welcome. John Lee says, can you use this technique on piano recordings? Virtually, if you're talking about Cakewalk, and pretty much 99% of the DAWs do have this feature to convert MIDI instrument into audio. Yes, you can. It doesn't matter what instrument it is. And a lot of the time, if you have lots of instruments, VSTIs or VST instruments, and they can bog down your system, especially if you have a slow computer, it's better to convert it into an audio, save and keep the MIDI, and you can delete the VST instrument, freeing up some memory, and then you can mix it using the audio. And you can add your compressor in EQ plugins as you normally would. And if you need to change something, all you got to do is add the VST instrument, connect the MIDI track to the VST instrument, and fix it and bounce it down again to an audio. That way you can actually save a lot of resources. So if you have like 20, 25 different instruments and instances of those virtual instruments, especially in EDM type of music, or whatever, or even orchestral music, you've got orchestra VST instruments, then doing this way, it will save you a lot of resources on your computer, and you can do a lot more, while mixing it down. Secret Res says, a new question. Since I need to use headphone monitors in my apartment and have different headphones with different impedances, could you please recommend rack-mounted multi-out headphone amp so that I can set mark levels instead of trying to track different reference levels? Yeah, I guess there's many headphone amps. Presonus has one that has 4 output, or even the cheaper one, Behringer has 4 headphone output one that you can use. There are many headphone amplifiers, but I guess the cheapest one would be the Behringer one, PowerPlay 4200, I think, something of those lines. I can't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, you can use them. And they've, especially the Behringer one, it's really great because you can do a lot of things on the individual 4 outputs. And I believe you can have up to 8 headphones plugged in there, but 4 individual headphone amps, and you can mono them, mute left, right, or left or right of them, because if there are people who like to sing with one headphone out, and if you don't want to get the audio from one headphone, one or the other, into the microphone, you can mute that one off so they can only hear it on this one. So it's really great. So try that one. Giuseppe says, input external synth, record to computer, print in 0 latency, have my problem. Yes, there will be, you're never going to get 0 latency using external synths. If you are playing, then there's always going to be latency. The way I do it is I record MIDI, and then I play back the MIDI into the external instrument, like my Roland synths or my Yamaha synths or whatever, and then it will play back. And because of the latency compensation that happens when MIDI notes are sent out and being recorded, then it'll be okay. Unless you actually want to play live, and then there's going to be some latency unless you use direct monitoring, if that if your audio interface supports it. Okay, let's continue on. I know the questions are a bit outside the topic that I'm actually working with, but regardless, it should be all good. Let's just go and continue, and I'll show you why having the compressor will make your bass guitar louder without making it sound, without turning it up. It's just loudness. It's how your ears perceive. Okay. So here on this clip, we have the picks. So I'm going to process that and apply effect, and I'm going to normalize it. And I'm going to normalize it to the 100%. Okay, so now that's grown. So my average is now should be about -6 dB. Now, the new one that's been compressed. I'm just going to process that one again. Normalize to 100%. And look at the difference now between the two waveforms. Because we took care of the peaks, now my compressed audio is louder. And it will sound louder. Let's have a listen to the original one. So we got about -6.8 as average signal level. And let's have a listen to our compressed one. And let's watch the level meter. It's, well, 0 dB, so it went right up there. Okay, so now you can see how we can push our audio as far as we can. And of course we can turn the gain down of this if we wanted to, or the fader. Now we've gained all that energy which was missing in the first one by using the compressor. That's what I'm actually trying to demonstrate here, how compressors work, and by having the correct setting of attack and release, how you can change the dynamics of an audio without affecting the actual audio too much. I hope that makes sense. Of course, we can turn the gain down of this audio, a -6 dB, and we'll still have 6 dB of headroom, but it will sound louder because we reduced the dynamic range. I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions in this regards, I will come back. And let's have a look what's happening. Yeah, Giuseppe mentions peak reduction. That is correct. Yes, that's what we are doing. We are reducing the peaks of the audio, reducing the dynamic range, hence making it sound louder. So you can do this to all of your instruments, and all of a sudden your mix will become louder without changing any of the balance of the the characteristics of the audio and the balance of the audio as you start mixing it. So that's how you can get louder music. It's not about adding a compressor and a limiter on your main bus, but it's more working at the next level down on each of the audio tracks and each of the clips within those tracks to make sure that those long peaks, which don't really serve much purpose, unless it's a percussive instrument and you don't want to change too much of the characteristics. But if you can change the peaks without affecting the audio, and that's why compressors are used for, then you can decrease the dynamics and increase the loudness of the audio. So let's do a quick loudness analysis and find out how much actually difference it made in loudness wise. Here we are, back to the scene. Over here, let's add loudness analyzer. Remember, they are both have been normalized. Let's have a listen to this one first. Okay, we have -6 as peak and true peak as well. -6.77 dB peak, and our integrated is 3.9 LUFS. So let's just go into our second one, and let's add the analyzer here, and let's have a listen to what the levels are. So we got, 0 dB now, virtually peaked. And we have integrated of 9.3 LUFS. So it got louder, but let's reduce the level of the clip so that it's, -6 dB or thereabouts. And let's just apply effects. Let's adjust the gain. It was -6. Let's do -7 dB. Thereabouts. So we are reducing the gain of the processed one by -7 dB to match the same gain as the main one. Yep, -7. Let's have a listen now. Okay, so we've got 2.5 LUFS as integrated, but the main objective here is that we don't have to reduce it -7 dB, because we could have easily reduced it by a couple dB and we still have a louder sound, where this blue one at the top, that's the highest we could push, because that's normalized to 0 dB, because these peaks are hitting 0 dB, where the average was -6 or -7 dB. So if we go back to this one and just do undo the gain, or maybe even to just reduce it just for the sake of so it's not tooting. Let's just reduce it by 3 dB. So it gives enough headroom in there. Let's have a listen for the last final time. So now we've got about 6 LUFS. Okay, at -3, and we can still push it higher, but for this one, we can only go 3 LUFS, 3.5. Actually, that's my mistake. I forgot to turn the compressor off. Oh. We need to turn the compressor off because that's pretty much affecting the same way. Here we go. That's better. I hope the figures make sense now. Okay, my mistake. I do apologize, my mistake. I still had the compressor on, comparing it, but I mean, you can understand the whole purpose of this. As you can see, if you got the right setting for the compressor, you can get rid of these peaks, and then you can push the average level of the audio track much higher than what it used to be, without affecting the rest of the characteristic of the audio. I think that's about it for today. I hope this was helpful and explanatory. Of course, this video will go playback later on. So if you have any comments in regards what you've seen, you can comment below, and I'll try to help and answer them for you. Again, my apologies for forgetting the compressor on the original one, because that's affected. Of course, in many ways, because now the levels were all different because we normalized it and the compressor was just doing all funny stuff. So hope that helps you out. And very last few questions, if there are any. Yeah, I'm just reading through, don't mind me. Yeah, Giuseppe says calibrate to -18 dBFS to 0 dB analog. Yep, that's correct. Usually that's around a nice sweet spot for a lot of things. And Mips Music says LOL at turning the compressor off. I clocked it. Hey, I'm learning. Yeah, thank you. Again, my apologies for forgetting the compressor on and messing up our level metering. But second time round, you could actually see it was still going all the way peak to 0 dB, but the LUFS level was much lower because the peaks take so much headroom that you couldn't get enough energy of the rest of the audio further up in level. Well, thank you so much for everybody for being here, and I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure you give me a thumbs up, and I may be doing a lot of this live stream in the very future, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, as always, thanks for watching and have a great time making music. I'll talk to you. Cheerio, guys.